Hello, everyone. Happy Saturday and welcome. This is A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love, and I'm your host, Tomás Garza. Thank you all for joining me here today on this Saturday. I hope that you're enjoying a beautiful weekend, whatever that looks like for you. If it's peace and quiet, then I hope you're having peace and quiet. If it's a house full of people, a party, maybe some activity, then I hope that you're enjoying yourself. Thank you so much for tuning in here today. And as always, I know I say this a lot because it's true. I'm excited to talk about today's idea. What we have done here in the workbook in A Course in Miracles is we've moved through another of our review periods where we review a couple of lessons a day that we've covered previously. And now we're on to the traditional format of one idea a day with commentary and some suggestions for practice. And we'll go in depth into that today. Before I launch into it, I really, again, want to thank you all for tuning in and thank you for all of your questions and comments here on the live stream. I invite those. So if you have a question, whether it's about today's material, the topic's going to be forgiveness, as you'll see, or spirituality in general, whether you just want to say hi, or if you have a specific question, maybe a comment, feel welcome to leave that here in the comment thread. And if you're catching me on the replay, welcome. Thanks for tuning in on the replay. This is available on Enlightened World Network, and all back episodes are on Enlightened World Network's YouTube channel, where every single show on the network, and there's some excellent programming. Every single show has its own dedicated playlist. So if there is a workbook idea that you're interested in, feel welcome to peruse those playlists because they're updated all the time. So, like I said, we're talking about forgiveness here. And we've moved on through a review period to lesson 121 in the workbook, which is quite simply, forgiveness is the key to happiness. All right. Forgiveness is the key to happiness. Now, I've talked about forgiveness here on the live stream several different times, and we're going to talk about it today. And because of the smile, you know that we're going to talk about it again. Why? It's central to this thought system. It's central to spirituality in general. It just so happens that A Course in Miracles places a lot of emphasis on it. So what I want to do today is just go through some background and some basics here. Why, you might be asking, is forgiveness the key to happiness? Well, pretty clearly, we know that the key to happiness, we just know deep down, the key to happiness is not the next shiny object, whether that's a piece of jewelry or another relationship, right? Whether that is a new car or a new house or a new paint job on your new car, some shiny new hubcaps. We know that the key to happiness is not to be found outside us. We know this. However, we don't act like it, do we? We seek happiness everywhere but where we should be looking for it, which is within. So what's the key to that? Forgiveness is central to this. So let's talk about what the Course means by forgiveness, because this is very, very important. It's very important because here in the world, we have a very different idea of what forgiveness means. And one way of looking at this is that our forgiveness here in the world is woefully, and I do mean woefully, incomplete. People forgive with strings attached. They say, oh, I'll forgive you, but if you ever do this again, then you're going to face all of these consequences. Our parents are great for that. Yeah. I mean, my mother certainly forgave with conditions. It's not real forgiveness. It's not real forgiveness. And anytime someone forgives, whether it's you or someone else, whenever we forgive with conditions attached, it's just forgiveness in name only. While we still have an expectation, and often the person doing the forgiving feels superior. The person being forgiven for whatever it is they may have done or not done can feel inferior, less than. There's a separation maintained, in other words. And what we're talking about here in the Course in Miracles is truth with a capital T, that there is no separation of any kind. So, by definition, any practice that leaves any sense of separation intact is not effective. It simply continues the dominion of the ego. So what do? Well, we look at it differently. And the Course says, and is able to say, that forgiveness is the key to happiness because it takes a very different approach. This is very important. It's a very important distinction to the way the world views it. A Course in Miracles views any action that a person does, anything a person says, thoughts even, anything that we do when we're interacting in the world is either an extension of love or it's a call for love. It's one or the other. As I've said throughout on this live stream, why? It's not me saying it, the Course said it, and I'm communicating this message. We have a choice between love or fear. You could choose to see that as our having a choice between God and the ego. You could choose any number of words there, but either we're staying in our perpetual round of suffering or we're showing ourselves the way out of it. Everything that we do is either a call for love or it's the extension of love. Now, a call for love may make sense when we talk about small children, right? Children that want to get attention will pretty much, as we know, do anything to get attention. They'll pull the cat's tail, they'll break a window, they'll do anything. They might come and give you a hug, but the bad behavior that we label unhelpful, like the breaking the window, like pulling the cat's tail, like breaking toys, breaking dishes, that kind of thing, screaming, right? It's a call for love. Same with adults. Any egregious behavior is deep down a call for love. This is how a Course sees it, and this is how I encourage each of us to see it. I encourage you to see it this way as much as you can, and while we practice seeing it this way. That's one of the beauties of A Course in Miracles. It is a self-study curriculum which includes practice. That's how we do this, because spirituality is about experience in the end. Doesn't matter what you know, doesn't matter how many books you've read, doesn't matter how many retreats you've sat, doesn't matter how many hours you've sat in supposedly quiet contemplation. You know, I'm laughing because I just said supposedly, right? It doesn't matter any of that. It's experience that really counts. That's when we begin to viscerally feel and know and experience the truth of what we're talking about. It's one thing completely to understand this intellectually. It's another thing entirely to both understand it intellectually and have the experience of it. That's what we're going for, the experience of it. So, because people's behavior is either an extension of love, or it's a call for love, cry for help is the language we use in common parlance. It's totally appropriate. Yeah, very appropriate, right? A call for help. Yeah, call for love. Because people are doing one or the other, when someone is issuing a call for love, the appropriate response is to extend love. That is the loving response. I mean, you can ask yourself, what would love do? Extend itself. Actually, that's all it could ever do. That's all it can do, happily for us. But we have to get there and get comfortable with that in our own minds. That's why people go through this workbook over and over and over again. As adult learners, we do need repetition. So, as I promised at the outset of the show, we'll be going through all of this again. Forgiveness comes up throughout the workbook, deliberately placed again and again, so that we understand and begin to practice it, and we begin to integrate this into our lives. So, what happens if we don't forgive? Well, the unforgiving mind suffers, and it suffers greatly, tremendously. And we don't need any books to tell us that. We don't need any retreats to tell us that. We don't need a live stream. We don't need any of that to tell us what we know is that the unforgiving mind suffers. Think of your own life and any situation where you held a grudge, where you were unwilling to let things go. How did you feel? How did you feel when the event took place? How did you feel years later when you still hadn't forgiven? The workbook lesson has a lot of commentary. In fact, it devotes several paragraphs to some of the characteristics of the unforgiving mind. And we can sum it all up in one word: suffering. Exactly what we're seeking to end. And I invite you, by the way, to go through and read these daily commentaries as much as you can, as often as you can, because it helps to explain the day's idea. Forgiveness is the key to happiness. Okay, that might generate more questions than answers. So you're likely to get some answers to that question by reading the commentary. And then you're highly likely to get further answers through experience by practicing the idea. Now, that's what today's lesson looks at. Forgiveness, when we're forgiving someone, we're forgiving not only them, we're forgiving the entire world and everyone else and ourselves. Why? There is no separation of any kind. We're training our minds to that truth, that there is no separation of any kind. Yes, this is mind training. Yes, we all need it. When we forgive people, what's going on here is we're overlooking error. The original error, in fact, the only real error, is our identification with the ego in the first place. It's separation itself, which, as we see in the Course, as we see in other spiritual traditions as well, it's an illusion of separation, but it feels real to us. So what do we need? We need a solution that feels real and tangible, something we can actively do. Yeah, that's what we need here at this level, because we're not fully awakened. We still identify with a separate sense of self. So we need remedies, practices, exercises like forgiveness. We're recognizing when we forgive something, someone, the world, ourselves, that the error of separation never occurred. The Course uses the term overlook, and it really is that. It's an acknowledgement that this never happened, and none of us is a sinner. We are not guilty. Now, we heap those beliefs upon ourselves. The guilt is rampant in the world. All of the egregious behavior that we human beings commit is the result of unresolved, subconscious, unconscious guilt from the original separation. That's it. And as we find out in truth, the separation never truly occurred. It's illusory. However, again, because I just mentioned, it feels real. So let's stay in that realm with the practice of forgiveness. Now, the Course makes very clear that forgiveness is itself an illusion. This is important to understand. There is, however, a fundamental difference between forgiveness as an illusion and all of our other drama as an illusion. Forgiveness leads us out of the drama. Everything else keeps us in the drama. There is a difference. Yet, however, it is still an illusion. Why? There's nothing to forgive. Because according to the thought system of A Course in Miracles and spirituality in general, this is illusory. It never happened. So forgiveness overlooks the original error. Now, people ask me all the time, and this is a beautiful question, I can't forgive somebody for something that they may have done to me. Now, if you've been abused, if you have to set healthy boundaries, I want you to set healthy boundaries. Yeah, this is not saying that you cannot do that. If you don't feel ready to forgive someone who has greatly abused you, then that's okay. You are capable of what you're capable of today. Now, you could make great strides nonetheless. We can all do that. I like to use the image of the dog going to the bathroom on the carpet. You can forgive the dog, right, for going to the bathroom on the carpet, right? You can forgive yourself for spilling coffee on your pants this morning. Yeah? Start with what you're capable of right now in the present moment, and you just keep working with it. Just keep working with it, and ultimately you find the benefit in it, and it extends. And today's idea in the workbook provides the opportunity for just such a practice period where it invites you to hold in your mind an image of your enemy. I bet you know who that is already, don't you? Could be a political figure, could be, well, could be your partner. Hope not, but could be. Yeah, could be a family member, a work associate. Yeah, you know who that person is. Hold an image of that person in your mind and follow the instructions that the workbook gives for practice. We practice seeing light in that person, which becomes easier, by the way, when we recognize that we've all made the same mistake, seeing ourselves as separate. There is light in this person, your so-called enemy, because that's all that there is. And when you do this, you find, if you're doing the verbal math, you're also forgiving yourself. Same with you. We've all made the same mistake. So when you forgive and practice seeing the light in another person, you are seeing it in yourself. Remember, we're mirrors for each other. As you extend forgiveness, so are you forgiven. And today's workbook idea has a very, very good practice period. And now it recommends that you spend up to 10 minutes on this. And it's really beneficial if you do that. However, the time doesn't matter. It's just as easy to experience profound transformation in a shorter period of time, depending on the day, right? What's important is that you give this a try. You do it. You picture someone whom you consider your enemy and see the light in them. You picture someone also who is your friend and let them shine that light into you, on you. You're all forgiving each other. Why? There is no separation of any kind. When you forgive one person, you forgive all of them. This is the way it works. Now, the Course uses different terms. Actually, it's not the Course itself, but people that have written and commented on the Course. There is a term out there called quantum forgiveness, which I like. I mean, again, these are just terms, but this is a deeper level of forgiveness. It's a deeper level of practice than what the world considers forgiving behavior. So if you ever were to read the commentary on on any day's lesson in its entirety and read it multiple times so that it sunk in, it would be today. And we're on lesson 121, forgiveness is the key to happiness. Now, I'd like to turn on the comments here. Thank you all for joining me. And this always generates some discussion. Forgiveness always generates discussion because, as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, it always comes up that there are people, there are things, there are situations in this world that we find more difficult to let go of. You know, when I think of that, I think it's perfectly natural, right? So if you're in that situation and you're thinking, well, I'm really having a hard time letting go of this, no problem, right? Yeah, I totally understand. We all totally understand because we all have those situations where it just doesn't seem easy for some people. For some of this person that we may have pictured in the practice period as our enemy could be our own parents. I mean, it could be our own siblings or our spouse. It doesn't have to be an opposing political figure. That it doesn't have to be a dictator or a deeply, deeply troubled world leader. It doesn't have to be anything like that in order for us to experience this difficulty. So we see that in practice, we need time. We need time. We need practice because this is the process. And A Course in Miracles is really great about this because it says, okay, this is what time is for. All right. This is what time is for so that we can practice. So you can start with forgiving yourself for spilling coffee on your white pants and having to change before you go out today, right? You can start with things that seem smaller because it only seems smaller. In fact, it's just as important as forgiving a troublesome world leader who's done a lot of damage in the world. It's exactly the same. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. I mean, one is literally just like another. Why? There is no separation at all of any kind. All right. And Norma, hi, how are you? All right, we've got a comment in Spanish. All right, I love this very much. Sí. Okay, well, Norma, and I'll translate this in Spanish. And there's a request out there that I translate all of these subtitles in Spanish. I'm not sure how to do that. No sé cómo hacer eso. Creo que la red misma tiene que hacer eso. En Facebook es una cosa que uno puede hacer, creo, pero yo no sé cómo hacerlo. Pero si hay una pregunta o algo, algún comentario, puedo contestar en español. So, all right, if you have questions or comments in French or Spanish, because I speak both, feel welcome to leave them right here, and I will leave these comments in Spanish. Now, I will say that there's some really beautiful Spanish language programming right here on the network, and I invite you all to check that out. I invite you all to check out Ángeles y Arcángeles with Montserrat, and there's also an interpreted Angel Speaks in Spanish. I believe it's every Friday. So check the listings here on the network. Norma, muchas gracias por habernos acompañado hoy. Y no sé cómo hacer todo con los subtítulos, de verdad. Pero si hay una pregunta en español, por favor, hágamela. ¿Ok? Gracias. All right. So, where should we leave this off here? Let me leave off with just the invitation to go deep with forgiveness. The forgiving mind unburdens itself. That's what it does. It unburdens itself of all the burdens, all the veils, all the baggage that is laid by the mind that does not forgive. The forgiving mind unburdens itself. It lightens itself, quite literally. So I invite you to do this. This is a central idea. As we go forward in the workbook, we'll be talking about it in the days to come more and more. Consider today just a primer. And as always, if you have questions or comments, please feel welcome to reach out to me right here on this Facebook thread. So thank you very much for joining me. Have a great day.